Hello, welcome back to Video Store Clerk Reviews the Movies. I know I've taken a long hiatus. I don't know what to say. I just got to where I didn't feel like making YouTube videos for a long time, but I'm back, and hopefully I'll keep them coming with some regularity. What's brought me back is recently I watched every movie in the Hannibal Lecter series, I guess we'll call it, seeing that he is the one character that's connected all the movies, even though he's not the actor that's been in all of them. And most people probably be like, what are you talking about? Because I'm sure there's many people out there that's only seen the Anthony Hopkins Hannibal movies. But, believe it or not, there's a movie before Anthony Hopkins was Hannibal, and there's a movie after Anthony Hopkins became Hannibal. And I'll be talking about every single one in the series. So, we'll start with Manhunter. And I forgot to look it up. I don't know exactly what year it came out, but it is an 80s movie, Manhunter. And it had William Peterson as Will Graham that Edward Norton would later play in Red Dragon. And Manhunter, if you've seen Red Dragon, is a lot like it, but then again it's also not. And this will be spoiler filled. These movies, all of them, are old enough to where you should have seen them, and especially the good ones in the series, and I will, give my opinions on the ones you should see and shouldn't see. But Manhunter, like I said, you have William Peterson as Will Graham. You have Brian Cox as Hannibal Lecter. You have Tom Noonan as the Red Dragon, or the Tooth Fairy. And that's really the only people who are worth mentioning, except for Joan Allen. If you compare Red Dragon to Manhunter, I would really say that Joan Allen is the only person that walks away that can still hold their head up high and say, I did not screw up, the role. She's the only one that's not just really outshined by the person later playing her character. I mean, when Brian Cox was watching Silence of the Lambs and saw how Anthony Hopkins played Hannibal, it should be like anybody else who finally saw Val Kilmer play Doc Holliday. They just like, Brian Cox should have been like, I blew that role. Because, I mean, when you're watching Manhunter, you don't even really pay Lecter any attention. Every character in this movie is so understated and blasé, and like even the Red Dragon, when he's given his like supposedly powerful monologue, when he has the character Lowndes in the chair, it's so muted, and just nobody is showing any emotion in the movie. And that's really the major downfall I'd say Manhunter has is, I mean, Will Graham is supposedly so much like these psychopaths that it even drove him to spend time in a mental institute to become less like them. But in the movie, that just comes off as him just, never having any emotion. It's all flat, and most of the movie he's talking into a tape recorder. But anyway, the gist of the movie is Will Graham gets called in. You find out he was retired from the FBI. He gets called in to catch this new killer, the Tooth Fairy, before he kills his next family that he's going to kill. He's already killed 2 families. and he kills by the moon. So the next full moon, they're like, hey, he's going to kill another family. And they need Will Graham to come in because apparently he's the only one that can think like these guys and catch these guys. So, time's an issue. They want Will Graham to come in and catch this guy before the next full moon. And in Manhunter, it's Will who decides, I'm going to go back to Dr. Lecter. And you find out he's the one that caught Lecter, but Lecter almost killed him as he was catching Lecter. And he's going to go back to Lecter to get kind of the feel for it again. Kind of like he's got to get back in the dirt and get dirty to think like these people. And it's just, his scenes with Hannibal Lecter are just awful. And if you know anything about the Red Dragon book or the Red Dragon movie, Michael Mann, the director of Manhunter, kind of threw away all the motivation of the killer from the book and based his version of the Red Dragon on a guy he met while researching another movie. He met this guy in jail who was obsessed with the moon. So the killer in Red Dragon that Tom Noonan plays, the profile from the Red Dragon book, it doesn't fit and nothing makes sense because Michael Mann changed the entire motivation for his killings. And so none of the Red Dragon stuff syncs up, and it just all falls apart. And of course, as Will's trying to catch the Red Dragon meets this blind lady, Rita, because they both work in a photo lab, and he starts falling for her, and all of a sudden now he doesn't want to keep killing and serving the Red Dragon, and he has these arguments with this imaginary Red Dragon that's controlling him. And then all of a sudden the Red Dragon wants Rita. He's fighting against the Red Dragon, not wanting to give him Rita, and all this stuff. And, if they'd have got better direction where they actually showed emotion, it probably would have played better, because I think Tom Noonan is a scary presence if done right. It's just without the emotion, it's just it all comes off as boring. So, yeah, the wrap up of the movie isn't anything like the book. The really cool part that Lecter plays in the book, spoilers, is Lecter really only participates because his purpose is to get Will Graham's address, which he does in this version of the movie, and he sends it out in a coded message to the Red Dragon via a newspaper. And in the book, you think that the Red Dragon is dead because his house burns down and he's put a decoy body in there, and they think that the Red Dragon burned up in the house. Well, then you find out that wasn't Dollarhide, the Red Dragon's real identity. That wasn't him in the fire. It was somebody else that he had killed. And as you find that out in the book, Dollarhide shows up at Will Graham's house to kill him and his family, as Lecter told him to do in the newspaper. And he severely injures Will Graham, much like Lecter did, but Will Graham ends up killing him and saving his family and all that. But Lecter still, fulfilled the goal of getting him and the Red Dragon in the same room and getting Will Graham hurt again. Well, they just omit all that in this, and so in the climax of this movie, Will Graham just jumps through the window and shoots the Red Dragon, and it's over. So, lackluster movie, lackluster ending. I don't think Will Peterson's that great an actor to begin with, but Tom Noonan should have gave a lot better performance than he did. So, just all around, I just think this movie really drops the ball. So, all in all, I really can't recommend this one, even if you're a big fan of Lecter like I am. I can't even say watch this one for that, because the Hannibal Lecter in this just isn't worth watching. Brian Cox is a horrible Hannibal Lecter. So, Manhunter, I would have to say pass. Now we come to the classic, the one everybody knows, the one that swept the awards, the gem in the collection, the best Hannibal Lecter movie out there, Silence of the Lambs. Now this is about as close as you get to a perfect film. Now if you read the two novels, it's almost like Thomas Harris was like, I'm gonna rewrite Manhunter and just change a few things. Like the main cop, we'll make her a female, we'll make her a trainee, and she didn't catch Lecter. But it is the same dynamic as Red Dragon because it's a cop talking to Lecter trying to catch another killer. But the changes in this one are so great. So, Jack Crawford, which is the main character played by Scott Glenn in this one, sends Clarice Starling, a FBI trainee, to talk to Dr. Lecter. He tells her to fill out a form, like it's like an analysis. He says we're trying to get an analysis on all serial killers to learn more about them for our behavioral division, which Clarice wants to work in. And really, Jack's sending her there, but not letting her know why. He's trying to get info on this new serial killer that's killing people, Buffalo Bill. But he knows not to let Clarice know that, because if Clarice knows that, Dr. Lecter will pick up on that, and he'll never give any clues. But Jack Crawford knows that it's been a long time since Dr. Lecter has seen a female, and she'll probably entice him to give more away. So in this one, Clarice shows up, talks to Lecter, and she thinks she's just there for the survey. He's not going to fill out the survey. Something happens, I won't go into it, it's pretty gross. But because something happens, Hannibal calls her back and says, look, I won't do the survey, but I'll give you something else. I'll give you a chance at advancement, which is what you really want. So he leads her to a storage unit. And in the storage unit, they find this decapitated head that turns out to be a former patient of Lecter's. And this patient was killed by Buffalo Bill. And Lecter's like, I didn't kill this person, I just put them away, much like I found them. They were killed by a fledgling killer. And all this, and he's like, I'll give you info on Buffalo Bill, but you have to give me information. So now, Clarice will get information from Dr. Lecter, but she has to share things about her past because, Lecter is a psychiatrist. He likes getting in people's mind, and he is drawn to Clarice. So, much of the movie is, and I say much of the movie, but I think Anthony Hopkins only has about 16 minutes screen time in this movie. But, Night and Dark with Brian Cox, 16 minutes of screen time, you walk away, you remember Lecter from this movie. He got, Best Actor Academy Award for this one. 16 minutes. He should have got Best Supporting, but it was such a great performance, he got Best Actor. So, that's why this is a classic, and people are like, what's Manhunter? So, yeah. So Clarice is getting this info from Lecter, but this book has a better ticking clock than we got to catch them before the next full moon. The ticking clock on this one is the next girl to be abducted by Buffalo Bill is a senator's daughter, and they know that once he abducts them, 3 days he starves them, shoots them, skins them. So they know once that senator's daughter is kidnapped, we got 3 days to rescue her. And it being a senator's daughter, the other girls, yeah, they're important, but they weren't the senator's daughter, So they've got to do everything they can to catch them. So, and in this one, where in Manhunter you had okay to good actors giving horrible performance, in this one you just have good to great actors giving their best performances. So it's just the best all the way around. You've got Ted Levine playing Buffalo Bill. I'm not even going to spoil anything about Buffalo Bill just in case you haven't seen it. Watch the movie. This made Anthony Hopkins. He was almost 50 when he made this movie. The only other thing he was even recognized for was Elephant Man, the black and white David Lynch movie. But this one put him on the map and kept him there. Silence of the Lambs is why you know who Anthony Hopkins is. So yeah, this is Lecter talking to Clarice. We got to catch the Buffalo Bill, this killer. I said this was going to be spoiler free, but this is such a great movie. I don't even want to spoil it just in case you haven't seen it. But it is such a classic. It's probably already been spoiled for you out there, but it's just so great. Watch this movie. There's so many good scenes in this movie, almost start to finish. I don't think there's anything I would cut from this movie. It is as close to a perfect film as you can get. This and Jaws. Like, this and Jaws, I wouldn't touch. Leave them as they are. Watch them at least once a year. Great, great, great movie. Don't touch this one. This one is amazing. Watch this one. But yeah, Anthony Hopkins. Oh, Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal. Like I said, it's like Val Kilmer's Doc Holliday. No one else is gonna ever be this character like Anthony Hopkins is this character. That brings us to the next movie in the series. And as much as I dislike Manhunter, I might dislike Hannibal, the movie, even more. And boy, was I looking forward to Hannibal. I mean, you got Anthony Hopkins back as Hannibal. He's free. He's not in prison. Oh, man, was I looking forward to this movie. Oh, and let me tell you, as high as my anticipation was for this movie, that is how much of a letdown this movie was. There are things to like about Hannibal. You got Gary Oldman playing Mason Verger, who is, I think, the only victim of Hannibal's to survive. So, I'll just give you the gist of Hannibal. Hannibal's free. He's living in Paris, I believe. And you got Clarice, played by Julianne Moore, because, and I agree with Jodie Foster, she wouldn't come back because this character they've written, this isn't Clarice. This is a betrayal of her character. But Julianne Moore ruined Clarice. She doesn't hold a candle to what Jodie Foster was as Clarice. Not a candle. But basically, Jodie Foster does something, gets in trouble with the FBI. So she gets in some mess. You got Ray Liotta playing Krindler, who was a small character in Silence of the Lambs that kind of took over when Crawford and Clarice got into some hot water in Silence of the Lambs. He was played by a different guy in there. But anyway, Krindler goes after Clarice. You got this inspector in France trying to take down Hannibal, but he's trying to get proof that it's Hannibal to give to Verger, because Verger will give him like $5 million to catch Hannibal for his own reasons. It's just ridiculous. Like, I wanted to see Hannibal free doing whatever Hannibal did that got him put in prison in the first place. I don't know what this bullcrap is that he's doing in Hannibal. It is so far from the realistic, movie reality, but the realistic things that went down in Silence of the Lambs, it is so far from that it's just, it's a hot mess. It's terrible. Terrible. And, like I said, it was going to be spoilers, but I'm going to keep the spoilers out because it is so far off the map that you almost got to watch it. Because once you've seen something so great like Silence of the Lambs, you almost got to watch Hannibal to see. Because this is, it's based on the book, but it doesn't end like the book. But a lot of it is from the book. So this is a good example of an author that wrote a character smarter than the author. Like, he wrote the character of Hannibal so well that he couldn't even write him anymore. Like, he couldn't even write a good enough future for Hannibal. So, even though it's awful, terrible, horrendous, you almost got to watch it just for the outlandishness of it. Just to see the character Gary Oldman is playing of Mason Verger and all that nonsense. So, yeah, I can't say I recommend it other than you got to see it just for the mess that it is. So, yeah, check it out just to see how far it fell from the Oscar-winning masterpiece that Silence of the Lambs is. But that's all I'm going to say on Hannibal, because I just hate how far it fell. I just hate how far it fell. But you got to watch it. You got to watch it for the spectacle of it. So that brings us to Red Dragon, which, even though it comes after Silence of the Lambs and Hannibal, it's a prequel to Silence of the Lambs, because it's basically Manhunter. It's just now it's Manhunter with the Hannibal we want, Anthony Hopkins. But now we have Edward Norton as Will Graham, Harvey Keitel instead of Scott Glenn as Jack Crawford, the FBI guy. So yeah, it's the same story as Red Dragon. We got Ralph Fiennes as the Red Dragon, and I'll just talk about the differences of this one. Other than we got Hopkins as Lecter, which makes it already way better. You got the same story. Will Graham's brought in because he's the only one that think can catch the Red Dragon before the next full moon. Yada yada yada. Hannibal's got to catch him, but at least in this one, Hannibal gets the address, sends it to the Red Dragon in the paper. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. In this one, they do the whole Red Dragon's house burns down. They think the Red Dragon's body is in the house. And they find out, hey, that wasn't him in the house, just in time for him to be at Will Graham's house. Showdown goes down. Boom, boom, boom. Will gets really injured, but saves himself and his family. Even though the family looks pretty broken by the end, you'll just have to watch it for the how the showdown goes down, because it's pretty brutal. But it's not as good as Silence of the Lambs, because nothing can be. But it's not the direct that Hannibal and Manhunter is. It's kind of in the middle, and if there was no Silence of the Lambs, this would be a great, spectacular movie. But because we have Silence of the Lambs, it's only just a pretty good film. I mean, it's really good. It's just not Silence of the Lambs. But since we have Hannibal, Anthony Hopkins playing Hannibal, it's definitely worth seeing. You should definitely see Red Dragon, and if you want to, watch them in order: Red Dragon, Silence of the Lambs, then Hannibal. And like I said, just watch Hannibal just to see the train wreck and how bad it can get. So I'm going to leave Red Dragon at that, because like I said, it's basically Manhunter toad all over again, just with the Hannibal we want, better actors. Plus you got, for Freddie Lounge, you got Philip Seymour Hoffman, rest in peace, playing that character. So, I mean, you got really good actors all the way around, really good story, and, these actors show way more emotion than William Peterson and Tom Noonan did in Manhunter. So that alone, I mean, I would have to recommend it way more than Manhunter, which I don't recommend Manhunter. So definitely check out Red Dragon. And that brings us to the last movie in the series, but chronologically it would be the first movie. And that would be Hannibal Rising. Now, this one, I don't know. I'm kind of lukewarm on it. I kind of like it, but you don't have Anthony Hopkins, but you couldn't have Anthony Hopkins, because this shows him from a kid into like his 20s, and you just couldn't do that with Hopkins. I mean, they didn't have the de-aging technology enough. I mean, they gave him a ponytail in Red Dragon to make him look younger, but there was no way, they couldn't give him a ponytail long enough to de-age him to play himself as a kid in this movie. So, you had to recast him. And you just can't. You can't recast Hannibal, really. But, that said, I kind of do dig the movie. If you have to give me a Hannibal origin, I guess this'll do. He doesn't have any of the Anthony Hopkins charm or acting talent. But, who does? I would say when you go into this one, just don't expect that Hannibal. Just expect an okay kind of origin story. But, for some reason I like it more than I dislike it. I don't know why, but it's just one of those movies that I just dig, even though I shouldn't. As much as I like the Anthony Hopkins Hannibal, I should really hate this movie, but I don't. Like, when I'm going, I watch the whole Hannibal series often, and I'll say, I'm just going to watch Silence of the Lambs, or I'm just going to watch Red Dragon, but I'm kind of a completionist. Once I watch one of them, I have to watch all of them. And Hannibal Rising is one that I don't dread rewatching. So, since it's the newest one, I'm not really going to spoil it much. It just tells his childhood, and it gives a reason for him being a cannibal. I don't think you really can give a reason, because being a cannibal, there's really no justification for it, but they try. But I'm going to leave this one spoiler free. I'm just going to say check it out. If you like any of the other ones and want to see Thomas Harris's version of why his cannibal became a cannibal, give it a try. I think you can do a lot worse than Hannibal Rises. So check it out, or Hannibal Rising. It's definitely better than Hannibal to me, and I'd say it's even better than Manhunter to me. So, yeah, I would say give them a look. So, out of the whole Hannibal Lecter, franchise, I'm saying watch all of them except for Manhunter, really. Even though I'm not really recommending Hannibal, I'm just saying watch it. It's so bad it's good, kinda. Yeah. So I'm not recommending Hannibal, but I'm saying it's so bad you kinda gotta see it. So all in all, I'd say, even though one of them is a watch it because it's that bad, I'd say if I'm only not recommending one of the series, pretty good series. So check it out. Definitely one of my favorites because of Anthony Hopkins, because of Silence of the Lambs, because of the Hannibal character, itself. So since I'm on this, I have seen, I think it's 3 seasons. I've seen all 3 seasons of the Hannibal TV series. And I would say give that a look. It's definitely interesting. Mads Mikkelsen, to me, is the second best Hannibal. And the only thing that makes him not great is he's very mumbly, and his accent is pretty thick. And a lot of what makes Hannibal great is what he says and how he gets you with what he says. So, not being able to understand Mads a lot as Hannibal kind of drags it down, but the series overall and him, he has the look and the attitude I really dig as Hannibal. So, I would say give the series a look. Definitely. The guy playing Will Graham is the best Will Graham we've had, even over Edward Norton. Edward Norton, I think, was lost in Red Dragon. I think he didn't know how to play it. If it wasn't for Hopkins and Ralph Fiennes in Red Dragon, I think that movie would have been a dud too. But the Will Graham they got for the series, he's pretty awesome. And they bring in some stuff from the movies. You got like Verger comes in, and you got the ant from Hannibal Rising and stuff. And just the way they do things in the series is really cool. So watch all the movies, and then if you like them or into it, check out the series, because I think the series is really cool. It's a really good in building onto the world, I think. So But that's my opinion, and that's my opinion on the whole Hannibal Lecter franchise. So, hopefully, I'll come back and do more movie reviews. I'll try and go more in depth and all that. This was kind of a, hey, I just want to get back on, YouTube. I just want to talk movies again and do something. So, if you like this, let me know. If you got a series of movies or a movie you want me to review, let me know. Because I'll watch anything pretty much. Just, put it in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe. And, hey, let me know what you want me to review and I'll do it. But thanks for tuning in and hope you'll keep coming back. Thanks.